Welcome to the latest edition of the Imperialism debates. We are coming to you live over the radio with two venerable members of both sides of the argument. In this edition, we will be covering the Spanish-American War, American takeover of the Philippines, and the overall arguments for and against imperialism. Representing the imperialist viewpoint of our nation is our nation's President, William McKinley. On the other side, we have the President of the Anti-Imperialist League, George Boutwell, and his Vice President, Felix Alder. Without further ado, let's have a word from our honorable debaters.
Thank you. It is my honor to partake in this debate. I am eager to begin and thoroughly discuss the topics at hand.
We are also quite excited to give our viewpoint on the issues facing us as a nation.
Now then, let's begin. Mr. President, sir, before and during the Spanish-American War, you criticized Spanish rule in Cuba. Now that America has defeated Spain, many people are realizing that they do not want Cuba to be completely self-governed. What do you have to say about this dilemma?
We have decided to instate a military government to control Cuba in the aftermath of the war. We realize that American economic investments in Cuba are too important to risk by allowing Cuba to self-govern themselves. As I have come to believe, a prosperous country depends on a powerful and wide-reaching economy, which is what Cuba lends to us.
Are we not a nation conceived in liberty? By taking control of Cuba, we are contradicting the very fabric of who we are as a nation. Is having a prosperous sugar trade as important as remaining true to us as a country?
Mr. Boutwell, with all due respect, you are blowing this way out of proportion. For our nation to remain prosperous, we must expand and develop our overseas markets. Cuba is just one example of America utilizing foreign markets to expand our economy.
As most of us understand, sugarcane is Cuba's main export. Let us all think about this for a second. What are we contradicting our nation's ideals to maintain a stable sugar trade?
I do not see how we are contradicting our nation's ideals through our actions in Cuba. We are merely conforming to the present-day requirements of having a prosperous country. So, in essence, what the Spanish-American War was, the Spanish sent in a massive military force into Cuba, numbering almost 150,000 men, to control their interests within the island. But, obviously, the Cubans were quite unhappy with the terrible conditions that they experienced from these Spanish soldiers. So, it became incredibly difficult for me to resist sending in an American military force to free the Cuban natives. Eventually, I had no other choice, and I succumbed to the request of my nation to send in a military force and free the Cuban natives from the Spanish rule. After I sent in the force, the American soldiers drove out the Spanish soldiers, and Cuba was rid of the Spanish presence. Now the question that faced me was, do I grant Cuba their independence, or do I take control of Cuba so that America can control their interests within the country? This photo shows the Philippines and Cuba. Cuba is right beneath America in the red box, while the Philippines are to the far right of the photo in the red box.
Let's continue on. Mr. President, you have faced lots of criticism for the harsh treatment of native population of the Philippines. For those of you who don't know, this conflict stemmed from the previous Spanish-American War. After the Philippines assisted America in defeating the Spanish, the Philippine population believed that America would grant them their much-desired independence. Instead, America decided to take control of the Philippines, resulting in a revolt led by the Philippine native Emilio and Rinaldo. A bloody conflict ensued. Mr. President, sir, what do you have to say about this?
I would first like to say that any country's power is dependent upon the economic and political prowess. Now, is that not what the Philippines will offer America? A chance to occupy new markets and spread our nation's economy to new lands. The Philippines have an abundance of natural mineral resources, and their fertile soil is perfect for the mass growing of crops.
With all due respect, I am absolutely astounded that the President has the nerve to say what he just said in front of such a large audience. Let me remind everyone that American troops killed anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 innocent Filipino natives. What have these people done to deserve such cruel and harsh actions?
We were merely assisting the Philippines in achieving political stability, and we believed that the only way this could come about was through the complete American control of this country. As we all know, a civil war was imminent in this country. So instead of having this nation experience such a trying and bloody battle, we intervened and staved off the Civil War.
This is hypocritical. Our president says that he didn't want the Philippines to experience a bloody war. But that is exactly what he did. Through his attempts to control this nation, he brought a brutal and bloody war to the Philippines.
We're jumping to conclusions here. I would like to bring our attention to the fact that we were attempting to civilize this population. We entered the Philippines trying to attain for them political stability, not to mention economic prosperity and the opportunity to convert to our Christian religion.
Correct me if I am wrong, but when I think of civilizing a country, killing 500,000 people does not come to mind. In the words of my colleague Mark Twain, we have gone there to conquer, not reform.
Emilio Aguinaldo, pictured here, led the Philippine resistance against American troops in 1898. A year later, he became the first president of the Philippines at the young age of 30. Propaganda was widely used by America during the Philippine-American War. Photos such as this depicted Uncle Sam looking down on the supposedly inferior races of the Cubans and Philippines. If you look closer, you will see that the Puerto Rican and Cuban are wearing nice clothes. This is due to the fact that Puerto Rico and Cuba had already been taken over by America. This makes America's intentions quite clear. They were going to take over the Philippines. This is another example of American propaganda during the Philippine-American War. It depicts Uncle Sam plowing the land which represents the Philippines. Not just that, though. The plow is being pulled by two horses named Justice and Humanity. This leads us to believe that America was intending to civilize the Philippines. This graph represents the casualties of both America and the Philippines during the war. As you can see, the death toll of the Philippine population is drastically higher than that of the American soldiers. The real shocking number here, though, is the Philippine civilian death count. As you can see, the American soldiers killed at least 200,000 Philippine civilians. This contradicts the previous piece of propaganda stating that America had come to civilize the Philippines, because, as we can see, the American soldiers just killed exorbitant numbers of Philippine civilians. This makes for a fascinating debate. Let's get back to it.
Wonderful. Let's move on to our final topic. As imperialism has grown within the United States, two very distinct viewpoints have been formed. The U.S. government is most vocal supporter for imperialism, while the Anti-Imperialist League is obviously against imperialism. Mr. Boutwell, what do you have to say in conclusion for your side of the argument?
To conclude, I would like to bring us back to the founding of our great nation. Great Britain had imperialized America, which we were not that happy with. So unhappy, in fact, that we decided to stage a revolution for our independence. Obviously, we won and had gone on to create an enduring and successful country. Now these other countries are staging revolutions and revolts against their mother countries, just like us. But the stories differ in that now we are taking control of these newly independent nations, effectively undoing the entire purpose of their revolts. We must act under consideration of our own country's roots, and we must act under the ideals of our own great nation.
Mr. Boutwell here is still thinking about events that happened over 100 years ago. The world is changing and we must change with it. As our industries overproduce goods, we must find foreign markets to buy and sell commodities. Only through the expansion of our political and economic power via imperialism will we be able to truly become a successful nation.
That is all for tonight. Thank you very much for your participation, Mr. Boutwell, Mr. Alter, and Mr. President, sir. We'll be back next month with another great debate. Good night, America.
Now, for a little background on our debate's participants. William McKinley, pictured here, was the 25th President of the United States of America. He was best known for his victory in the Spanish-American War and for the acquisition of countries such as the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. Now, for the anti-imperialist viewpoint, George Boutwell, pictured to the left, and Felix Adler, pictured to the right, were the president and vice president, respectively, of the Anti-Imperialist League. The American Anti-Imperialist League was formed on June 15, 1898, as a protest against America taking control of the Philippines. Membership rapidly grew to an astounding 30,000 members, with many famous members including Andrew Carnegie, pictured to the left, and Mark Twain, pictured to the right.